Well, hello everybody, and here is number 4 in my series on the Democratic presidential candidates. After I finish doing the candidates, and there's quite a lot, I'm not going to do some of the really ones I can't even remember their names, but and maybe later if they do rise up in the polls, but generally I'm going to do the top or the most interesting ones. And I am going to look at Donald Trump after that. But let's move on to Elizabeth Warren. And please remember that this is just a few observations. I'm definitely not at this stage going to predict who's going to win because there's too many variables. But I do want to point out, interesting things that are happening in their charts. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell so that you get notified when I upload new videos. So Elizabeth Warren, we don't have a time of birth again, but her moon's solidly in Taurus, so probably was in Taurus all that day. So she has a Taurus moon, which is kind of very solid, very reliable, and I like the Taurus moon. So she's a Cancer too. She's 0 degrees Cancer. Interestingly, she's shares the 0 degrees Cancer with my daughter. So it's an energy I'm really familiar with. But she has Uranus exactly conjunct her Sun. And that makes her a bit more radical for Cancer, a bit kind of break the mold. Cancerian is, of course, very nurturing, very healing, very emotional. They can be very touchy and very protective too. And she probably has some connections with the USA chart, so I'm going to have a look at that as well. And she has Venus in Cancer too, so she's a very caring person, for sure. But there's a couple of things I want to look at with the transits. So, okay. So right now, Eris is on her North Node. And North Node's in Aries. And of course, if you've been following along all of astrology at all this stellium that's coming up in it's now in Capricorn, but is building to a big conjunction on January the 12th. I'm just going to put it approximately there, is all going to be squaring her nodes. I kind of think she might be, it could go either way with a square. It's a tipping point, a crisis. She could disappear off the face of the presidential nomination, or she could start rising up in the polls again. I kind of think she's going to start rising up again, to be quite honest. And I do, because it's pulling her towards her North Node. And Eris, of course, disrupts the status quo, and having a female nominee would disrupt the status quo quite a lot. Doesn't mean she'll win the presidency, but based on this, I think she could be the nominee, even though I said I wouldn't make predictions. But yeah, but it's a big tipping point. That I know Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders both have strong squares from this as well, though. So there's so many variables right now. And maybe I'm going to revisit some of these nearer the time when the field has narrowed some. But I do want to point out as well, let me just look at the dates, that on June the 21st, that we have an annular solar eclipse, which is a new moon eclipse at 0 degrees Cancer, which is right on her Sun. And on the North Node end of it as well. So, that's near the convention. That's near the nominating convention. So, and eclipses tend to reset and and it's a new moon eclipse. So really, a new start. So that's really interesting too. There's let me look at the other eclipses, but I did notice that because it's in Cancer. And November, we do have a Gemini eclipse at 8, which is on her Mars and Mercury, but that's a full moon eclipse. And so maybe she'll be done then. You know, maybe she'll get the nomination and lose. But there's one other, she is kind of, her star is rising in some ways, I think, because I do want to look at December. The solstice, December 21st. We have the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn that happens once every 20 years. And it's right on her Jupiter in Aquarius. And we know, and Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, which is conjunct her Sun. And that's very much kind of about breaking the mold and moving to something radically different in Aquarius. So who knows? This is really interesting to me that this is all happening in her chart. A solar eclipse on her Sun, and then the squares from Pluto. Well, it's going to be all year really. Pluto is squaring her lunar nodes, and Eris sitting on her north node, bringing deep transformation. And then that great conjunction on her Jupiter. I kind of feel sorry for whoever wins the election with this great conjunction, because a lot of presidents have died or had attempts on their life after a great conjunction. There's a whole list of them. You can search it if you like. I think it was Astrology King wrote a blog post on it. So, but anyway, there's just some thoughts about her. You know, I've been unsure personally about Elizabeth Warren, but, you know, I had never looked at her chart. And, you know, I kind of like her chart in some ways. She's, just to go back to her, I know we haven't got the time, but, you know, I kind of like this Cancer with the Uranus there. And you know, this Gemini stuff makes her that kind of does fit how I've seen her, you know, how she had the quick retort at the debate last week, if you watched it, about there's never I can be the first woman president, but it was in the right context and it was quite funny when she did it. That's kind of the very Mars quick-witted Gemini energy. I like the moon in Taurus. I kind of like her a bit more than I did before. Now I see this. You know, I'm solidly a Bernie, but, you know, I'm open to others. It's just he's getting my vote in the primary, quite honestly, quite openly. But you know, she's got a nice sextile from this Sun Uranus thing to Saturn. So her, you know, Saturn and Uranus are the traditional and modern rulers of Aquarius, and they're ruling that Aquarius where Jupiter is, where that great conjunction is on the solstice in December, right after the election, the general election. So we'll see. Will it be Miss Warren, Madam President, maybe? I don't know. We'll see.